certain things that we need for a legal meeting, such as the warrant. I have the warrants. We have quorum, our town clerk, and myself, the moderator. My name is Keith Menard, and I am afraid of scissors. Okay, we also have non-resident members of town meeting. They are seated over here. They are people who may be able to provide insight on different articles as we look at them. They could be our people who help run the schools, property owners, and etc. Is there any dissent to allowing those people to speak at this meeting? Okay, seeing none, they will be allowed. The Finance Committee, I believe, will be making their way in shortly. People who make town meeting possible. Today we have our checkers, Lisa Postma, Lois Garrison, our counters, Don Postma, Lisa Freeman, and Ben Tessino, our constables, Carol Field, and Ben Tessino, and our mic runner, Reese Matthews. So a little bit about how town meeting will be run. Motion is made, there's a second, and then oftentimes we have a proponent speech. At that point, we'll move to question and answer. If you have a question, please raise your hand. I will point to you, wait for the mic to arrive. You'll stand, state your name and street address, and please make sure that you direct all questions to and through the moderator. After question and answer, we'll move to debate. Again, please direct all debate through the moderator. After debate is exhausted or the question is called, which does need a second as well as a 2/3 vote, then we would move to a vote. You must be recognized to call the question. So just blurting out, I call the question, doesn't do anything. Votes will be taken in various ways. One would be unanimous consent, where I would say, is there any dissent to passing this article? So I would say, is there any dissent to passing this article? If no one dissents, then the article will be considered passed unanimously. There's also your standard voice vote, so when people vote yea or nay. And finally, a counted vote, where you would stand and hold up your voter card to be counted. You would stand until we're done counting, and then I would ask you to be seated, and then the opposed to also do the same. And once everything is counted, then we'll announce the vote. So a little bit about how town meeting will be run. Sometimes we'll take actually in all of the cases, we'll be taking a motion from the floor. If it's a motion that is the same as what is printed in the warrant, it appears to be self-explanatory, then I would say, I'll accept a motion on Article 1 as printed in the warrant, so we would say so moved. There would then be a second, and we would move into the process that was explained before. At that point, I could say, is there any dissent to passing the article unanimously? We already talked about that type of vote. Finally, amendments must be made in writing. They should be made after the question and answer, in other words, during debate. And you must be recognized to make the motion, and the motion must be deemed to be within scope. Scope is loosely defined as whether or not people would have a sufficient warning of what we would be discussing in this meeting. So please keep in mind, while what we're doing is serious and has both long and short-term impacts to all of us, we're all neighbors. Please be respectful and enjoy the process. It is truly a great one. If I could have all the people who are running for elected office this year stand, please. Tim Bowden, Kevin Morse, Carol Field, Benjamin Tessino, Beth Bergstrom, Jerome Tassone, Jerome Jeff, always screw that up. Sorry, Jerome. Dana Harvey, Carol Field, Leo Lyons, Robert Josie, Hannah Furno, Jennifer Goslin, Aaron Sokrat, Leslie Stevens, Megan Schlesman, and Peter Ruiz Jr. Thank you all for running, for stepping forward and giving your time to run to try and make a difference in our town. It is appreciated. So if I can have everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, is there any dissent to dispensing with the reading of the annual town meeting warrant? Okay, hearing none, I do have a duly signed warrant from David Cortez. I'm on a roll already today. Timothy Bonin and Michael Fitzpatrick, and attested by Carol Field on April 13th, 2022. I will now accept a motion to recess the annual town meeting until the conclusion of the special town meeting. Is there a second? Second. All in favor? All opposed? Good. That'll make for a shorter night. Is there any dissent to dispensing with the reading of the special meeting town warrant? Okay, hearing none, I do have a duly attested warrant signed from David Cortez, Timothy Bonin, Michael Fitzpatrick, and attested by Carol Field on April 7th, 2022. I will now take a motion from the floor to pass Article 1 as printed in the warrant. So moved. Motion's been made. Is there a second? Second. Is there any dissent to passing Article 1 unanimously? So if you had any questions or would like to speak on this article, you would say dissent, and then we would move into the process. If you don't, then it will be considered passed by unanimous consent, and we'll move on to the next article. So with that said again, is there any dissent to passing Article 1 unanimously? Hearing none, Article 1 passes unanimously. Article 2, snow and ice account transfer. I'll accept a motion from the floor to pass Article 2 as printed in the warrant. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any dissent to passing Article 2 unanimously? Seeing none, Article 2 passes unanimously. Article 3, prior year bills. Now accept a motion from the floor to pass Article 3. Motion's been made. Is there a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any dissent to passing Article 3 unanimously? Seeing none, Article 3 passes unanimously. I'll now take a motion to adjourn the special town meeting. Made. Is there a second? Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any dissent to passing or to dissolving the special town meeting and taking up the previous recessed annual town meeting? Seeing none, away we go. I will now accept a motion to pass Articles 1, 2, and 3. It's been made and seconded. So this motion, I should say as printed in the warrant, this motion works a little differently than most. And so the way we do this is I will, you know what, I have to take that back. I did that wrong. I had even practiced this one in the mirror and I still messed up. So I will actually accept a motion to pass Articles 1, 2, and 3 from the Finance Committee.
So moved.
Motion been made. Is there a second? Motion been made and seconded. We'll now move forward with Articles 1, 2, and 3. In our bylaws, it says that the Finance Committee makes the motion for our budget, and that's why it's done that way. And yeah, so I got my mulligan. So the way that this one works is I will go through and I will read each heading. In the budget, there's a heading under each line. And if you want to speak about a specific item in the budget, you would say hold. So for example, if you wanted to speak about the selectmen expenses, when we go through total general government, you would say hold. After we get through all of these, we'll go back to the ones that say hold, and you'll have a chance at that point in order to ask questions and debate on the parts of the budget that have said hold. Once we go through any questions and debate on the held items, we'll then move on to the next, and then at the end, we'll work through the entire budget. Does that make sense? Great. Rich, you looked at me a couple times. Everything okay?
You're a looking guy. Just moderator.
Yeah.
Just on, once we get through the whole process, you probably want to read all the magic words for the Article 2 thing, because it draws from a variety of sources. That's all.
Even though it's as we
Yeah, because the warrant doesn't actually print, from this part,
Okay.
from that part.
All right.
But once,
This is our town lawyer, Rich Bowden, who keeps us out of trouble with, yeah, I won't go there. So, and my typical Gene disclaimer, which is, when we get to the end of this and everything is passed as printed in the warrant, not the summations. Good, Gene? Awesome, great. Okay, does everyone have a copy of their town flyer? Good. Okay, total general government, $1,855,347. Total public safety, $3,410,676. Total public works, $1,120,000, or $120,788. Total health and human services, $308,689. Total cultural and recreation, $279,711. Total education, $16,827,960. Total insurance and employee benefits, $5,098,892. Total debt services, $2,050,626. Total capital outlay will be discussed in a future article. Total special articles, 0. Total transfers, $50,000, for a total budget of $31,002,689. Okay. No questions? Nope. All right. Okay. Hold on. If we could get a mic runner over here, please, Reese.
way. I'm not exactly sure when I should ask this question, but it has to do with the compensation table, which does affect the budget. It's kind of strange how we do it. We approve the budget and then we approve the compensation table 6 or 7 articles down the road. So my question is about the 4% COLA that's listed in the compensation plan.
We'll have to do that when we get to that article.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions on the total budget? Okay, seeing none, would anyone like to speak on the budget? All right, so there are some magic words that Mr. Rowe would like me to speak. So the motion is to vote to hear and act upon the report and recommendations of the Finance Committee, and further to fix the salary and compensation of elected officials as presented in the Finance Committee's fiscal year 23 budget recommendation, and further to approve a total budget of $31,002,689, consisting of $15,629 transferred from reserve for reduction of excluded debt account, $370,000 transferred from the ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation, $10,000 transferred from the Wetlands Protection Fund, $327,347 transferred from free cash, and the remaining $30,279,713 to be raised and appropriated as all as set forth in the column entitled Fiscal Year 23. And further, Finance Committee, Board of Selectmen, Town Administrator recommended budget in the handout entitled Finance Committee's Budget Messages for Fiscal Year 2023 for the purpose of funding the annual operating budget of the town for fiscal year 2023. Is that good? Okay, great. So since there have been no questions and no debate, is there any dissent to passing Articles 1, 2, and 3 unanimously? Okay, seeing none, Article 1, 2, and 3 is considered passed unanimously. I'm sorry we didn't get to use your slide, Gene. Okay, Article 4, Blackstone Valley Vocational Regional School District Fiscal Year 23 budget. I will accept a motion to pass Article 4 as printed in the warrant.
No move.
Motion been made. Is there a second? Motion been made and second. Are there any questions on Article 4? Okay. Would anyone like to speak on Article 4? Seeing none, is there any dissent to passing Article 4 unanimously? Seeing none, Article 4 passes unanimously. Okay, I will accept a motion to move Articles 5, 6, 7, and 8 together, as they are self-funding articles and usually considered mostly housekeeping. Okay, motion been made and seconded. Is there any questions for any of those articles? Seeing none? Nope, hang on one second.
Just specify those appropriate.
Yeah, it would be,
They're all passed.
okay, great. Anyone like to speak on any of those articles? Seeing none, is there any dissent to passing Articles 5, 6, 7, and 8 unanimously? Seeing none, Articles 5, 6, 7, and 8 are considered passed unanimously. Okay, Article 9, I will accept a motion to to move Article 9 as printed in the warrant?
So moved.
Motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Is there any questions on Article 9?
Brian Hogan, 10 Darling Way. I was just looking for the rationale for the 4% COLA increase. Typically, the COLA increases with like between 1 and 2%.
Matt, would you like that one? We can go ahead and hand respect the mic, please. Go ahead, Matt.
Mr. Moderator, through you, thank you to the resident of the question, Ryan. You are correct from your time in the Finance Committee that COLAs in Douglas are typically constrained to the 1 to 2% range because of the size of the revenue growth year over year. In the last 2 years or so, we've been in the process of replacing some folks who have retired or who have left us. And frankly, our compensation table is not competitive. So we've had some difficulty getting applications. We've had some difficulty getting applications from qualified people.
Matt, can I interrupt you for just a second? Yeah, a little.
Yeah, I don't know why my voice is dying on me. It's the end of the day. My solar batteries, it's cloudy today. Did you miss any of what I said? Did anybody in the back miss anything that I said? Because I'm happy to go back over it. So we're not competitive in the municipal world for our salaries. And you may recall that last year at town meeting, we asked for a longevity bonus to be provided to our employees who've been here for a lot of years, right? As preparation for trying to adjust their salary upwards so that we could address the comp team. So in fiscal 22 and the year we're in, the longevity bonus has been in place. The personnel bylaw amendment that created that will sunset as soon as we fix the compensation table. And the compensation table, I'm going to be coming to special town meeting in November with a revamped compensation table that will be simplified, so there'll be far fewer grades, and will be competitive with the market. Mr. Moderator, when I was doing the math and I came up with an estimate of the cost of that adjustment, it was more than the town of Douglas could afford to do in 1 year. We just simply would not be able to make that adjustment all in one fiscal year with all the demands that we have for funds for different projects. So to the questioner, what I did is I tried to split the difference so that when the new compensation table is voted in November, it will take effect in fiscal 24 after being approved by town meeting at that time. And then the budget adjustment will not be this, I want to call it a cliff, but it won't be this rocket ship increase. It will have taken place over a couple of years to make us competitive. We're not so far off the mark that we can't make this minor adjustment and be right back in the thick of the competition. If we let it go much longer with some of the inflationary winds that we're facing now, it might get to be really hard to fix in the future. I hope, Mr. Moderator, that answers the question.
Is your question been answered?
Yeah, I'd like to follow.
You'd like to follow? Okay. Thank you, Reese.
He's going to get his 10,000 steps today.
So what you said makes a lot of sense, and I understand that. And to be honest, I'm less concerned maybe with the municipal employees, where there are less of. As we get to the union employees, or the teachers especially, they're a majority of the employees here in town, a similar COLA would be pretty costly to the town. So is that under consideration as well? Or, I know you can't discuss union negotiations, but how does this COLA affect, will it affect our negotiations with the future of the unions?
Mr. Moderator?
Please.
Actually, this is the last group to be adjusted. So over the last 2 contract negotiations with police and fire, we've moved their table up in order to compete with the marketplace. It's a bit of a presentation issue, right? So you read the document and you see the rates of pay and you see a COLA. So the COLA, for instance, in the police union contract this year is 2%. But at the beginning of their contract, their entire compensation table was adjusted upward to account for years when they didn't get a COLA, or they were frozen. So it's actually municipal employees are the last group to be addressed. The teacher's contract that was settled has also been adjusted upward to be more competitive in a similar fashion.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none, would anyone like to speak on this article? Okay, also seeing none, all those in favor of passing Article 9, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. It's passed unanimously. Okay, I will now accept a motion from the floor, move Article 10, as printed in the warrant. Motion's been made. Is there a second? Motion's been made and seconded. Questions on Article 10? Okay, seeing none, would anyone like to speak on Article 10? Also seeing none, is there any dissent to passing Article 10 unanimously? Seeing none, Article 10 passes unanimously. Okay, Article 11. I will accept a motion to pass Article 11 as printed in the warrant. Motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Questions on this article? Start over here.
At our last planning board meeting, the building commissioner, Ken Frazier, came before us.
Yes.
Les Stevens, 31 Brookside Drive. At our last planning board meeting, Mr. Frazier, our building commissioner, came before us. One edit that we requested to make a change, which he agreed, and the clarification is underneath the building height. It says that the measurement shall be based upon the average grade instead of ground elevation.
And I was made aware of that. I will need the report from the planning board after you're done speaking. I was made aware of that this afternoon, of that recommendation, and I have deemed it at this time to be out of the scope of what was warned in the warrant. So I will not be accepting that motion. So the motion is as stands in the warrant, as was moved. But I do still need your report, please.
Mike Zwicker, 46 Oak Street.
Mike, you were not recognized. Other questions? Over here was first.
Hi, Benny Leonardo, U Street. I guess, could someone please just provide some background as to why this change is needed? And I got a couple of questions. The second one would be, would this impact?
And can you, a little closer to the mic, please?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Why was this change needed, this amendment needed in the first place? Can you give us some background on it?
Matt, do you want that, or over here?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Matthew Benoit, Community Development Director for the Town of Douglas. These are two recommendations put forth to the Planning Board by the Building Commissioner, as there are no clear definitions in our zoning regulations for either building elevation or building height. And he feels that this makes it clear for his interpretation moving forward. Thank you.
You have a follow-up?
I do. Well, would this affect, not story height, but the number of stories one could build?
I apologize, the number of what?
The number of stories, how a residential house could be built on, like 3 stories, 4 stories. Because by going down to 6 feet and considering 6 feet the second story of a building, now we've got building codes that pertain to second stories that now come into play. There's also assessment adjustments that could happen. And there's also story heights. Story height, I believe, is limited to 35 feet. But we can't have a structure taller than 35 feet. But we could say, hey, no 4th story, 3rd story living, stuff like that. Handrail heights go from 36 inches to 42, I believe. I mean, it opens a can of worms. And story height right now is 13 feet, I believe, in total.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. To the moderator, to the resident with the question, and just kind of echoing what Mr. Stevens said earlier, this is a great point to the confusion that the Planning Board determined at their most recent meeting. And having spoken with Commissioner Frazier, kind of made the recommendation to strike the elevation piece and only go with the height piece. We felt after some review, and it did take some continued hearings, kind of leading us to 4 days ago, for the recommendation that Mr. Stevens mentioned, just leaving the height piece and eliminating the elevation. These are two totally separate things, but they read like they're combined. And that was identified recently, unfortunately, in time for this meeting. But in the absence of Mr. Frazier, who's not here today, he did tell me that, and the board at the meeting on the 28th, that he was fine with striking the elevation piece and sticking just with the building height definition as printed in the warrant.
Other questions?
Mike Swicker, 46 Oak Street, on the planning board. That's why we have these meetings with the building inspector to clarify and change what was written, because we realized we needed to, that this wasn't the exact intent of what he was really looking for.
Other questions? Okay, seeing nobody would like to speak in this article. Okay, so just so we are clear, the motion on the floor right now is as printed in the warrant. I'm sorry? No, I still haven't gotten the report yet. Where's Ernie when you need him?
It's just to be on time, too, because planning board held a hearing constructing bylaw by a vote of
Let me see if I can fix this. Okay, all those in favor of passing Article 11, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. No. It needs a 2/3 majority in order to pass. The moderator deems the 2/3 was not reached. Unless there is any doubt as to the count, the motion fails. Article 12. I will accept a motion to pass Article 12 as printed in the warrant. Motion been made. Is there a second? Motion been made and seconded. I believe the planning board has a report for me. Okay, any questions on Article 12? I feel like we should have this meeting on April 20th, but whatever. Missed opportunity. Okay. No questions? Would anyone like to speak on this after they put their bag of Cheetos down? No? Okay. Any dissent to passing Article 12 unanimously? Okay, there is a dissent. All those in favor of passing Article 12, and please keep in mind this does need a 2/3 majority, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. No. The ayes clearly have it by 2/3, unless there is any doubt as to my count. Article 12 passes. Article 13. I will now accept a motion to pass Article 13 as printed in the warrant.
So moved.
Motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. I believe the planning board has a report.
Yes, we do.
Any questions on Article 13? In the back.
Hi, Vinny Leonardo, U Street. My question is, we're just going from 5 copies to 10, is that correct?
Mr. Moderator, to the resident, there are two changes here. It's going from 5 copies to 10, and there's also adding language to require a public hearing and consistent with special permits. We've been holding public hearings and consistent with special permit requirements. It just wasn't written in our regulations, so I made sure that it was added.
What you're going to keep in mind. Just take it. Was your question answered? Okay. Follow-up question? All set? Other questions? Okay. Seeing none, would anyone like to speak on this article? Also seeing none, is there any dissent to passing Article 13 unanimously? Okay. All those in favor of Article 13, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. The ayes have it by the 2/3 required majority. will now accept a motion to pass Article 14 as printed in the warrant. Motion been made. Is there a second? Motion been made and seconded. I believe there is a final report. And just real quick, I just wanted, as much as I kind of joked around about the reports, in all honesty, it took me probably the first 8 years that I was doing this for me to realize why Ernie kept handing me a piece of paper when he would come up to speak. So, yeah, the report thing from the planning board always throws me. So it's okay, so motion's been made. There is a second. Questions on this article? We'll start right here.
Les Stevens, 31 Brookside Drive. There was a number of changes that the planning board recommended that were not added into this article as written. We asked the moderator to accept these changes on the floor, but said not to accept the changes there. The changes would protect the spaces. You know, some of the changes we were doing was around the 5 acres, so that you can't exceed 5 acres of clear cutting, which basically any commercial solar farm would need to do that, as well as residential for their footprint to be able to put in solar farm. So at this time, we would be recommending to slow down this, but considering it's not ready, we're not going to accept the modifications in it.
And I believe the Finance Committee also has their results of the meeting on this. Is that correct?
Gave that to Chris.
Yep.
You need to
Okay.
speak to it?
It would be better coming from you, but I can speak on behalf of you. It's up to you.
Well, yeah.
Yep, if you don't mind.
Dick Vandenberg, Linden Street, FinCom. So when we had our budget discussion, this was not resolved yet. It had to go to the planning board yet for them to talk about it. That's why it says FinCom voted to defer. So before our meeting tonight, we got an update from Matt Benoit and the planning board about some proposed changes. But I think Pete, those are out of order, right, some of those changes.
They're out of the scope.
Out of scope. So we voted not to recommend as written in the warrant. I think we felt the changes proposed were good, but because they're not up for discussion tonight, we decided to vote against it as written in the warrant. But the changes that were being talked about, we felt were pretty good. Does that sound right, everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, questions on this article? Ready?
Joe Flanders, Perry Street. My question is to, first gentleman that spoke mentioned something about 5 acres clearing needed to be necessary. I didn't understand that. Maybe I can clarify a little more for me. And if it is asked to be not voted on, or I know tonight, what is the follow-up, or what the recommendations are? Are we going to have another vote? Is this going to be passed on to the next meeting? I'd like to know, because the reason I'm here tonight is because of this item. So,
Okay.
Les Stevens, 31 Brookside Drive. So the 5 acres is if there's any commercial solar farms going in, if someone owns 20 acres of land and they want to keep their land in their family, they may need to put a solar farm in there to get the tax revenue to kind of offset their bills and stuff like that. They may have a larger parcel. So the fact that it says 5 acres of wooded land cannot be cut restricts a lot of things. So currently underneath this planning board, there is bylaw in place. We do have site plan review that allows every solar project that's commercial to come in before us. as well as the residentials go before the building commissioner for him to review. We passed the bylaw about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, that would talk about residential as well as commercial to separate the two and define the two. I wrote that bylaw, it was vetted by the town, and that approved that town meeting. So we just don't want to be able to restrict residents who have large portions of parcels, such as the one up on Oak Street, that the person wants to keep the land in their family and being able to offset their taxes with the revenue that comes from the solar lease, unfortunately. That's the reason. If we had these 3 changes in here, the planning board that supported this, the voted in favor of these 3 changes and these edits, that's a final product that we want to present before the town. Since they're not going to be accepted as amendments, that's why we're voting to recommend them to vote down.
Follow-up question? Okay, Bruce?
Joe, Perry Street. So I guess my question is, and I'm a little, I don't understand, when we say 5 acres of clearing, what happens if a person, say, owns hundreds of acres and it's going to be commercial? Are we saying if someone owns hundreds of acres, they're limited to 5 acres or less, or on 200 plus acres, they could have a free-for-all here, there, and everywhere around town? That's what I want to know. Because 5 acres doesn't sound like a lot, but when you drive by it every day, it doesn't look good. And if it's a commercial in a residential area, and it's for the profit of making money for someone other than a family trying to save a farm, I see an issue with that. So I guess my question is, if you own a large parcel, what is the restriction? If you're in a residential area.
Matt, do you want this one, or? Weird.
Matthew Benoit, Director of Community Development. As it currently stands, there is no limit to size.
And what, so the, as printed in the warrant, what would that do for what he's asking?
There would be a 5-acre limit on forested clearing. The intent of the bylaw is to steer solar development towards fields, areas that do not currently consist of trees and such. I understand the planning board's recommendation here that it seems a little bit far too restrictive at this time, and I agree with the recommendations. I think to answer the question from the resident is, I would anticipate that this would be ready for the next town meeting with the changes recommended by both committees.
Is there a provision that if this is voted negatively, how long before it can come back?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. If this were a citizen petition and it was voted negatively, it would not be able to come back for 2 years unless the planning board recommended its return. In this case, where it's likely that it'll be the planning board bringing it back, that 2-year ban issue wouldn't arise.
Other questions? In the back. Reese? Lisa, keep your hand up for this just so we can find it.
Lisa Mozinski, 60 Oak Street. With the question as it stands, who serves as the clerk of the works to represent the town when a project is being developed?
I apologize one more time. Who serves as what?
Basically as the clerk of the works, because the proponent has a project manager who in our staff serves as the point person to oversee the project on our behalf. Is that clear?
Yes, thank you. Probably wrong. So if I'm interpreting the question correctly, Lisa, a developer comes over and says, we want to put in a solar farm, and they have their lawyers and in representation and saying, look, here's where we're going to put the solar farm, here's what we're going to do. So who is the person from the town that interacts with those people to make sure that they are following our bylaws and acting in the best interest of the town? Would that be a fair representation of your question? Okay.
Through Mr. Moderator, to the resident, depending on the application, if it's regulated by planning board, the zoning enforcement officer, that being the building commissioner, and any consultant that the planning board engages throughout the process to project completion, and also oversight for public safety and emergency services.
Follow? Reese, just go ahead and grab the other mic. Or, all right.
My question is a bit more procedural. If we vote this tonight as written, can't we come back in the fall and make a few amendments like we just had before us?
I will refer to town council.
Mr. Moderator, through the previous speaker, yes?
As early as special, correct? As early as special town meeting?
You could bring it up. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. You could, if you were to pass it in the as-printed version, you could come back at a future town meeting, special in the fall, annual town meeting, call a special town meeting, and amend it at that time. Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Right there.
Mike Zwicker, 46 Oak Street. On April 14th is when we had the planning board meeting covering all these changes. And the reason they were changed was, like finance said, was in the best interest of the town. So we're trying to keep it as one big package to put through. We know it didn't make it on the warrant. It was still fluid when the warrant was written. And as oversight and looking through everything, we review it. And that's why these modifications were made.
Okay, so that's going to be where the discussion about any amendment or modification to this ends, because this is, as printed in the warrant, is what we're discussing. So I understand that there were changes that would like to have been made in amendments at this meeting, but they are not. So hopefully everyone's clear on that. So again, questions on this article as printed in the warrant? Okay, seeing no, oh, I apologize, right over here.
Carol Godlinski, 55 Island Road. I know that we could amend it in a future meeting, but then, of course, that takes a 2/3 vote. So it's not as easy as you think to amend it. I think that we should pass this over or vote no on it tonight and redo it in the fall. Thank you.
And just for everyone's clarification, this also requires 2/3. And I guess we're done with questions, so if anyone would like to speak on the article in the back.
Hi, Kenny Leonardo, U Street. I think we should give the planning board their time to make the changes necessary, and we should skip over this as recommended.
Skipping over is not an option. Voting negative is, or voting affirmative is.
Okay.
Right here.
Joe Perry Street. I would say I would like to see it approved tonight, and we would go back to the fall to make any changes, because between now and the fall, you're saying unlimited, so nothing changes. So I think this is better than nothing.
Anyone else like to speak on the article?
Lisa Mozinski, 60 Oak Street. I think this article is well thought out, and I think it adds a lot of protection for the town, and that we should vote for it tonight. With all due respect, I'd like to know besides the fact that there are some changes, what is the financial benefit of moving ahead tonight? I just don't understand that. So I think, from the Finance Committee's perspective, I think this is a zoning protection for the community, and that we should vote for it in affirmative tonight and then make amendments as needed when they're thought out by the planning board and citizens as well. Thank you.
Mike Swicker, 46 Oak Street. On that aspect, if we clear this tonight, there'll be no solar projects, I'll make a bet in this town. This 5 acres on a solar project is so minuscule, nobody will even come to this town for solar, because they have to clear the land to make room for the panels. Just so you're clear, on this green energy and all these funds going on, without being able to clear the land to have solar projects, it's not going to happen, and it pays revenue to the town, and it's a lot cheaper than housing.
My name's Hannah from Church Street.
Stand up, please.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm Hannah from Church Street. I don't really know a lot about these meetings, but I'm wondering if there's a way that we can motion to look at each solar project on a case-by-case basis until the fall when we can get proper wording.
I'm just trying to, yeah. So just, give me 1 second, please. Mr. Bowen, I'm going to refer to you for legal opinion here, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you to the previous speaker, that's an interesting question. Unfortunately, for purposes of town meeting, applications of this nature would have to go through the planning board, where the planning board itself would consider them on a application by application basis. There really isn't any statute that would allow each project to be referred to town meeting for review by this body and approval or disapproval by this body. So there is a procedure in place for individual applicant review, and that's the structure upon which this proposal would rest if it were passed, and to risk the ire of the moderator, even if the planning board amendments, which it may well seek in a future occasion, were on the table, those would also rest on that structure of individual application reviewed by the planning board. So that's in place right now. It's not with this body, but it is with the planning board. Thank you.
Is your question answered? That's a good answer. So let me just, look, these meetings can be kind of intimidating. There's obviously rules, there's procedures, there's words that, the only time I had ever heard of scope before I became moderator was when I was brushing my teeth in the morning. So, there's there's different rules and new procedures that may or may not make sense at the time. I fully encourage you and everyone else to ask questions as we go and to participate in the meeting. You may or may not get the answer that you want at the time, and sometimes it may not make sense right away. And I fully encourage you and anyone to come see me after the meeting, and I will do my best to explain, why things happened in a certain way, and hopefully give clarification. But you should always feel free to ask questions and to make your opinion known, as long as they are within the bounds of what we're discussing at the time. So, thank you.
Ken Vincent, 23 Glen Street. We're looking for a little clarity. There seems to be a little confusion. Is this something that the planning board is recommending, this article?
They are not.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't mean to speak out of turn there, but as printed in the warrant, you guys are not recommending this. Am I correct? Okay. So as printed in the warrant, the planning board is not recommending this article. Sorry, I didn't mean to speak for you.
Just for the audience.
Just for the audience, no. The planning board can vote up and down on the solar farm, depending on the location where it is and stuff like that, if they don't think it's in the best interest of the community. So, just for the education end of it. So it's still controlled on the local level, and then it also involves a number of communities, a number of committees to review as well, and a number of boards. It goes to the selectmen board for TIF agreements and stuff like that. If the selectmen don't feel it's in the best interest of the community, they can vote, or make a recommendation to the board to not endorse it. So, just one for clarification.
You're not recognized. There's a follow-up.
I would just like to say that the planning board's the one that looks at all these things, they're the one that have the most eyes on it, so I would recommend that we support their motion. As not going forward with this.
Okay, anyone else?
I'd like to know then why was it proposed? If the planning board's against it, why was it proposed and who did propose it? I'd like to hear a little more why it's here. Clarification, please.
So yeah, okay. Go ahead, Matt. No, go ahead.
Thank you. Matt's been on community development. The reason this article was proposed is because we have a number of solar projects in town that had some concerns with stormwater bonding, decommissioning, and such, and we wanted to make sure that some of that criteria was added in language to regulations. Most bylaws that are proposed to communities are very conservative and protective in nature. This template I proposed, this came from my work with the town of Auburn. This is basically a blueprint, that I proposed with that community and catered to the needs of the town of Douglas. The cap on forested, or the 5-acre cap for tree removal was pulled from a regulation in another community, and I kept it the same. So this came forward through the boards and committees, and over time was reviewed. And these certain items that the board found are items that they find to be conflicting, and that the regulation seems to be far too restrictive as written in the warrant now. That's how the comments came about. There's a public hearing process for it, and the public hearing process held a meeting just outside of when the warrant was printed. So the time frame kind of got caught up along the way. So to answer your question, yes, I proposed this for the reason to protect the town of Douglas against solar development, but also to regulate it within the right means. And through getting all the different eyes and professionals and volunteers here in the community, they noticed the defects. And just based on the timing, that's why what's before us now is only what's printed in the warrant and not the changes that were reviewed. So, I hope that answers the question.
Last one.
So would you say, Matt, without this article alone, without approving impacts of some solar that went out, it could have, maybe if this was in place, wouldn't have happened, that we may be seeing issues with.
Through the moderator to the resident. It's no different than it's been already. Currently, we do have a regulation that allows special permits for a certain size. And special permit is a supermajority vote of members that have to determine whether or not it has public safety concerns, environmental concerns, and they can still shoot that project down if it doesn't meet those thresholds. So there is still a mechanism in place where it can be located through a special permit process. The bylaw that's in front of us today was to further regulate some of the more fine-tuned details of solar, which are a lot different than most other developments. They involve decommissioning, bonding, and a lot of criteria that you see printed in the warrant, which the board has conditioned in the past. It's just having it in writing makes it finite.
Over here.
Thank you. Mark Mungel, 20 Depot Street. I just wanted to clarify that this does not say that a commercial developer couldn't put a solar farm of more than 5 acres in Douglas. It just says that they want to give preferential treatment to lands that have been previously cleared. And so the clearing can't be more than 5 acres. If you have a 25-acre piece of land and 20 of it's already cleared, then it can still be permitted in this town.
Anyone else?
Unfortunately, we have very little land that is cleared because we have become reforested. The lands that we do have cleared actually are really quite beautiful. They're the fields that we can all see from the streets, like Evan Chesbro's. We do not want to push them into that area. If we've got a lot of backland, these solar things that they put in those backlands, nobody will ever see them going by. We also do have, fortunately, we have, I don't know, like 30% or 40% of our town is state forest, so we do have plenty of trees. But I'd like to see these solar places where I don't see them, in the backlands. And without cutting the trees, it's not going to happen. And no commercial solar is going to happen in less than 5 acres, because it's just not big enough to be economically viable.
Okay, anyone else?
I'm good. Jacob Schultzberg moved the vote, just don't know that.
Okay, there's been a motion to vote. Is there any dissent to voting on this article? Okay, seeing none, I will remember, or please remember that there a second. Try that again. It's a second on closing debate and moving to a vote. Okay. All those in favor of closing debate, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. The ayes clearly have it. We'll now move to Article, I've even forgotten what number this is at this point. Article 14. Okay, please remember this does take a 2/3 majority. The motion is as printed in the warrant.
Okay, so for it, vote yes, against it, you want to put it on.
Yep, awesome. All those in favor of Article 14, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. No. So the noes were louder, but I am not declaring that one way or another. So this one, please, if you are in favor, please stand and show your voter card. The counters need something. You're ready. You may be seated. All those opposed, please stand and show your voter card. may be seated. The article fails by a vote of 17 to 44. Article 15. I'll now accept the motion to pass Article 15 as printed in the warrant. Motion been made and seconded. Are there any questions on Article 15? I'm just waiting for the paper flipping to stop. I assume that everyone's trying to get to that article. Okay, no questions on Article 15. They would like to speak on Article 15. Okay. You sure nobody wants to speak on Article 15? No? Okay. Is there any dissent to passing Article 15 unanimously? Okay, hearing none, Article 15 passes unanimously. Article 16, I will accept the motion to pass Article 16 as printed in the warrant. Motion been made, is there a second? Motion made and seconded. Are there any questions on Article 15? 16 is what I said. Okay, hearing none, would anyone like to speak on Article 16? Okay, also hearing none, is there any dissent to passing Article 16 unanimously? Hearing none, Article 16 passes unanimously. Article 17, I will accept a motion to pass Article 17 as printed in the warrant. Motion made and seconded. Any questions on this article? Okay, hearing none, would anyone like to speak on Article 17? Right over here.
Oscar, Compass Point Drive. It's a lot to digest in all of this, but I live off of North Street, and seeing this looks good to me. I think it improves the walkability of our town, which we need, because I can't walk to downtown. I'm like, without risking, running into traffic. So they do this from, in Sutton, embarked on a project to go all the way to the town line to Douglas, and they have a sidewalk there. So I think this is a good move by the town. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this article? Or not?
It's a question.
It's good. Okay, we'll hit the rewind button just this once.
Dave Merchant, hailing from North Street in the great town of Douglas. On which side of the street are we expecting to put this sidewalk? Because it's rife with trouble on both sides.
Over here. Just bear with me 1 second. We just got to get a mic over to it. Reese, grab the other mic.
Thank you.
Bob and Eric, Economic Development. It's up to the engineering firm to decide which side of the street the sidewalk is going on. We're looking at one side as opposed to both sides.
Great.
And I'm actually going to go off script and ask a question myself. Is this going to be one of those things where like they cut out a section and they repave it, and 3 years later it sinks, and then we're all driving like this down the road, or are they going to like fix it after? Driving like this, okay. Anyone else like to speak on the article? Okay. Is there any dissent to passing Article 17 unanimously? Seeing none, Article 17 passes unanimously. Article 18, I'll accept a motion from the floor to pass Article 18 as printed in the warrant. Motion been made, second. Any questions on Article 18? Okay, seeing none, would anyone like to speak on Article 18? Okay, is there any dissent to passing Article 18 unanimously? Article 18 passes unanimously. Article 19, I'll accept the motion from the floor to pass Article 19 as printed in the warrant.
So moved.
Motion been made, is there a second? I'm sorry, one more. Is there a second? Motion been made and seconded. Are there any questions on Article 19? Okay, seeing none, would anyone like to speak on Article 19? Okay, also seeing none, is there any dissent to passing Article 19 unanimously? Seeing none, Article 19 passes unanimously. Okay, we do have one announcement. The committee working on the Douglas Open Space and Recreation Plan is asking people to take a planning survey. So whether you're watching this after or you want to grab out your cell phone and click that QR code that will take you to the survey. So with that said, now we'll go ahead and rewind this after the meeting is adjourned. So if anyone wants to come up and grab that after, they can. Seeing anything else, is there any dissent to adjourning this meeting? Seeing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. I will be here for a little bit if anyone has any questions.